Well, let's continue to look to the HHI data. You can see here actually 4 sectors. This is energy, 300 is the HHI competition index. Do we have them here? We don't have them here. Note that in some cases also the sectors can be defined in different ways. Here actually this is an official definition of sectors by US Bureau of Statistics, but here the definition of the sector might be taken more broadly, which means, if you take more broadly, instead of taking, for example, software sector, you take whole IT sector. In whole IT sector, you have a larger number of companies, of course. But when you do that, in automobiles sector industry, you can see HHI is falling down. Energy pretty much stable, although when this energy is sold to the houses, for example, natural gas, in that case, you might work with monopoly because there's only one company from which you can buy. Alternatively, you need to connect your house to the gas line of multiple companies. In banking sectors, not surprisingly, HHI has been rising, which means there's monopolization. And you can see in airline sector also, HHI has risen, which means there's monopolization. You might look to how these numbers have changed after 2014, if you're interested. And here is one internet site. You can go and look to the HHI index. Now we can go to the last point I can mention. USA Justice Department, if HHI index is less than 1000, sector is taken competitive. What does it mean? If you have, let's say, one company with 10% share, that's 100. 10 companies with 10% share, that would be 1000. So 10 companies with equal share is considered as a sector which is competitive by the US Justice Department. You might judge yourself whether that kind of a sector can be counted competitive or not. Above 1000, I think all the way up to 5000, they watch the sector. And above 55,000, they were mostly acting that sector, or at least consider direct action. Well, let's continue. These sites are almost all economists agree that most markets in economic systems are not perfectly competitive, and perfectly competitive also means that some of these conditions are not met, like standardized product or as I said before, or the perfect information, or other characteristics we have mentioned, for example, diminishing margin utility, diminishing returns to factors of production. The diminishing returns to scale. Also, no externality. You should have private goods, and also basically the consumers should be self-centered and don't care for other people's consumption. So all of the assumptions we have made up to this point in the last 2 lectures also should hold. And if any of them is violated, then perfect competition market in its pure definition doesn't exist. And as I said, almost all economists agree that this is not the case. But perfect competition model is used as a starting point or a benchmark of the market economy, or something which shows, according to mainstream, what best the market economy can achieve, basically. There are some defenders of monopoly also, although I mean at the center, the core doctrine or core models of the microeconomics basically tell that perfectly competitive market produces best possible results. And there are even if you go to if you take a more advanced economics classes, there are even models which show actually um, when you pass from perfect competitive model to monopoly model or model, the efficiency decreases. Basically, there are models that show that. And basically, using this model, you can also show what happens if one of the conditions there in the model is violated. And we will do that basically in the next lecture. So, now we will talk first on the short run outcome of competitive markets. Then we will go to and talk on the long run outcome of competitive markets. And lastly, you will see why this long run outcome, not short run outcome, but long run outcome is the perfect or most efficient possible outcome. So for the short run, we will first see what is the demand curve for a single firm, and then we will see the output that maximizes the profits or minimizes losses. Then we will see make profit loss analysis, and then we will see whether the company will decide to stay in the market and continue with production, or just stop production. So stopping production might be an option. And then we will draw the short run supply curve. Let's start. So demand for a single producer in a perfectly competitive market is this. It is a horizontal line. This is the market. This is the market demand curve, let's say. And for the whole market, when all producers together increase their production and want to sell everything they bring into the market, in that case, price needs to fall. So increasing quantity sold will require a decrease in price. But for a single producer, this is not the case. This is not the case because the single producer is producing such a small percentage of the overall level of output brought to the market. When, as I said, it increases its production reasonably, in that case, the price doesn't change. So if the equilibrium price in the market is $10, then the price for the producer, for a single producer, is always $10, whatever amount that producer brings to the market and sell. So in that case, I mean, he or she is encouraged to bring as many products as possible to sell, since I mean, as long as the revenue is higher than the cost, since price will always remains constant. So in this case, the price is the marginal revenue. It is, I mean, if I sell an additional unit, well, the price remains the same, which means the revenue I got from this extra amount I'm selling is equal to the price. And the price is also equal to the average revenue, since I mean price is always fixed. The revenue I got from selling 10 units is price times 10 units. Well, the average revenue is the total revenue, which is price times 10 units, divided by number of units I sell, which is 10. So in the end, when I divide 10 times price to the 10, I will get price, which is the average revenue. So both average revenue and marginal revenue curves are also, those revenues can also be represented by a horizontal line, which is equal to also the demand of the company. So we can put the that's a thing we have discussed. We can put everything we have seen up to this point onto the cost curves and see how what will happen with when we put it onto the cost curve. When we put everything we have seen onto a cost curve, basically. This is marginal cost, this is average cost, this is average revenue, average marginal revenue, and also the demand curve. Profit maximizing quantity in this case is, and you can test this, you can easily create a model for yourself with marginal cost, average revenue, marginal revenues. It's not that difficult actually. And once you do that, you can test whether this is really the case, basically. But the profit maximizing condition is marginal cost and marginal revenue should be equal to each other. If marginal cost and marginal revenue is equal to each other, then you are at the profit maximizing point of level of production, and everything you produce you are able to sell. If you produce more than that amount, your profits will fall. If you produce less than this amount, your profits will also fall. So your profits get the maximum level. How do we know that? We know that because of this. Let's say we produce less than this amount. Well, if we produce less than this amount, our marginal revenue is higher than the marginal costs. Remember, marginal revenue was the revenue brought by an additional unit produced. Marginal cost is the cost of this additional unit. If marginal revenue is higher than marginal cost, that means when you produce an additional unit and sell it, the revenue it brings is higher than its costs. So when you sell it, your basically revenue will be higher. The amount of money you got will be higher than the amount of money you pay for its production. So you will increase your profits. So up to the point when marginal revenue and marginal costs are equal to each other, you are able to increase your revenues. Of course, this is true for the case when marginal cost has an upward slope. This is not true for the case when marginal cost has a downward slope. So we should look to the point when marginal revenue and marginal cost intersects and marginal cost has an upward slope. Why this is not true for the case when marginal cost has a downward slope, I'm leaving it to you. Think about that. If you don't want to think about that, just take it this as a fact. So you should find the point where marginal cost has a positive slope and it intersects with the marginal revenue curve. You should find that point. So if there are two intersection points, you should not take this point but this point. Well, what happens if you pass this point? If you pass this point, now marginal cost will be higher than marginal revenue, which means the increasing cost of production in this addition is now higher than the revenue it brings. Which means if you produce this addition in that side, the revenue you got is less than the cost you have paid for the production, so your profits will decrease. So the point when your profits are maximum is, in this case, the point when marginal cost and marginal revenue are equal to each other. So this is that. Well, now we will look to a question which is basically based on a table showing the cost structure of a company. And we will see how we find the marginal cost curve in this case for this type of cost structure. But we are very close to the 15 minutes mark, so let's do it in the next part.